All right, let's get to this Emergence recap. I'll be honest. This show was like hit and miss. Uh, Overall, I thought it was a pretty good show and a fun show to watch. I did have some qualms about it, and obviously there's some head scratching booking decisions coming out of it. But I did enjoy the show, specifically the opening match on the show, and then of course the Iron Man match, which I will get to because I feel like the Iron Man match is pretty polarizing because I thought it was a tale of two matches. So, but let's get to the pre-show, which I did watch. Frankie Kazarian defeated Kushida. Frankie Kazarian, yep, as Billy was saying, yeah, he's back on the pre-show. I think he's back on the pre-show just because the Iron Man match took up so much time. So I think if they just had a regular main event, I think Kazarian would have been here. I think it would not shock me that if Nemeth stays babyface, that the main event of Bound for Glory is Nemeth and Kazarian. That wouldn't shock me. Also wouldn't shock me to see Nemeth versus JBL. Just like think of like the most boring, bland, paint by numbers main event you could think of, and that's probably where they're going. It's unfortunate, but I think that's just where we're at right now. But this match was okay. Nothing really spectacular about it. But like both guys are just very good pro wrestlers, and they had a good pro wrestling match, and I thought it was fine. Thought it was okay. And then now we get to PCO. He defeated Shera. So that poor Shera, man. Like we have this big mystery monster, this big surprise. Now TNA did not like tease it as if it were a big surprise, but they tease it as if it were a surprise, which gets their fans excited. And they have to know they're letting their fans down. They have to know. There was no reason to make this a surprise. They could have just announced it was Shera. That way they didn't set Shera up for failure. I think it would have been the same reaction regardless. Nobody extra tuned in. Nobody extra is going to tune in because of Shera, right? So maybe they wanted to get a couple extra people watching the pre-show, which makes no sense. But they had no business making this a mystery. Just fucking tell us it's Shera. That way we can get our expectations set. But going forward, I'm telling you guys, when they tease a surprise, this show is going to lower those expectations. Just think of the most basic ass bullshit that TNA could possibly do. And that's probably what they're going to do. Okay. They're void of creativity when it comes to this stuff. So you guys got to lower those expectations. Sometimes they will exceed those expectations. They have had some very good surprises in the past, but a lot of times they don't. And so you got to just lower the expectations. The match was not good. So the two brawled on the floor. Steph DeLanders is a ringside. He lays out Shira on the apron. He comes off with a swanton on the way to the floor. He and Steph DeLanders stop for an air dry hump that pops the crowd. Shira laid out, PCO heads to the top rope. Backwards, he leaves off for the PCO assault for the victory. Yeah, it was a very basic match. It was nothing. So yeah, totally just overblown. Should not have happened. But then we go to the opening contest of the actual main show, and it was the X Division Championship match. We had Zachary Wentz of the Rascals defeating Mike Bailey, Hammerstone, Jason Hotch, Laredo Kid, and Riley Osborne to capture the TNA X Division Championship. So, yeah, that's our new X Division champion. He will be heading into No Mercy on tomorrow night. I don't know if this means that he is going to be defending the title against Wesley or not, but I do get the feeling that Wesley will be getting the victory there. And then that could set something up to come back to TNA for an X Division Championship match where Zach Wentz would get his victory back. I do see that happening. But I also, like, it would not shock me that, like, at some point on Sunday, they decide to have Zach Wentz defend the X Division title against Wesley, and then Wesley takes the belt at No Mercy and then flips it back to Zach, like either Victory Road or Bound for Glory. I think that is a real possibility too. But again, think of the most bland possible paint by numbers thing you could think of. And it's also very possible that NXT doesn't even mention it at all. And like, they don't do anything with the title. So, I thought this match was very good, by the way. Lots of fun, lots of flying moves. Jason Hotch specifically, I thought availed himself very well. I think this kid Riley Osborne has got something. He's still needs a lot more. He still needs a lot more time, but I think he could be something. What that is, I don't know. But he's like he looks like a little white meat babyface. I think he plays the heel in NXT though. But he's got some talent. He really does. I can see why they like him. He looks like every other NXT like bland white guy that they've ever had, but I do think he's pretty good. He's also got a bland white guy name, Riley Osborne. But he is pretty good. But Wentz getting the victory, I thought is head scratching to say the least. I was not ready for Speedball to lose the title, but we all have to be realistic about what's going on with Speedball. He's had a very good run. He's had 3 years in TNA. He had match of the year in 2023, match of the year in 2022. I thought his match with Mustafa Ali was incredible. He's always a guy they can count on to have those great matches. He's limited with what he can do with promos, and so that's always going to hurt him in TNA. And that's going to hurt him in a lot of places. And so, but I also think that his contract expires at the end of the year, and they probably know that he's going to head elsewhere. And so they went ahead and just moved off of Speedball. They gave him his big moment at Slammiversary in front of 3,500 people. He's happy with that. I don't think anybody could say that TNA has not done right by Speedball. I think they have. I think a lot of people think that they just like his matches a lot, and they don't really pay attention to some of his limitations. So they think that he should be like the main event of every show and be their world champion. But he's not going to be anybody's world champion. It's just never going to happen. And that's okay. Not everybody's a world champion. Speedball is a guy. Speedball is like a shortstop, right? He's never going to win the MVP. Okay. He's going to be a very good player on your team. He's going to have very good matches. He's an amazing pro wrestler. He's had tons of amazing and exciting matches in TNA, and it's been a really good run. I don't see him lasting much longer in the company. He'll probably be in like the Battle Royal on Bound for Glory, and then finish up his dates and head elsewhere. Where that is, I don't know. If I had to venture a guess, it would be AEW, because they just like guys like him. Okay. They moved on Wentz, and we'll see what Wentz does with the belt. I think he's going to move it over to Wesley though. And then we got Steve Macklin defeating Eric Young. These guys had no storyline. So it was just kind of a match between two former world champions. The crowd really tried to make this match seem like a big deal. But it was a very basic match. They didn't really do much. Not to say that it wasn't a bad match, but it was average. It was just an average match. Afterwards, it looks like they're going to try again with Steve Macklin to be a babyface. Second time this year, they're going to go babyface on him. He ends up getting a roll-up victory and got the 1, 2, 3. And then Eric Young stands him up and then shakes his hand. So it looks like we're going to try to do another Steve Macklin babyface turn. We'll see where it goes though. And then we go to a trios match. We got Jordan Grace, Jody Threat, and Danny Luda defeating Ash by Elegance, Masha Slamovich, and for a moment, Alicia Edwards. Alicia Edwards got hurt during this match. Jody Threat did a dive to the outside and knocked Alicia out. She was out cold, like she was like frozen. It was a pretty scary scene. Doctors come out and they're checking on her, and then Tommy Dreamer just runs out and picks her up and carries her to the back, which is not like protocol, by the way. That is not how you deal with somebody with a head injury. With a head injury, you need to stabilize their neck, get them on a stretcher, all that. but I think they treated her like she was in a UFC fight, because in a UFC fight they just wake you back up. So that's kind of what they did. So Dreamer just ran out and was like, fuck guys, we got to pick her up and get her out of here. So he just picked her up and took her to the back, and they treated her backstage. Turns out she's had a concussion. She's going to be fine. I don't think she's going to be wrestling anytime soon, because that was a pretty nasty concussion. That was tough looking. That was scary. So get well soon, Alicia. God bless you. There is not a more improved television character in TNA the last couple years than Alicia Edwards. There hasn't been. She is fantastic at what she does. She is not a great, like, in the ring, slap the thigh, kick out of everything, moves after moves after moves. That's not what she does. Okay. She's a great character. She's done a really good, like, since she's turned heel, she's become a really good television character. So kudos to Alicia, and I hope she gets well soon, and I hope to see her back in TNA again soon. I don't know what this means for the tag titles. I think they should just have Ash by Elegance take the belt, and then just make Masha and Ash the champions. I can see them doing that. That would make sense. And then, because I think they're going to do, of course, the never-ending feud of all time: Jody Threat and Danny Luna, Spitfire versus Militia. Maybe just do Spitfire versus Malash. Yeah, do that. This match was good though. They had to pivot because they lost one of their people, but I don't think Alicia was probably going to be heavily factored in the match anyway. So, but they did a really good job pivoting after a scary moment. So kudos to them. Billy says, and I want to give a shout out too. Billy says, by the way, Jody Threat got herself shredded 100%. Yes, she did. Kudos to her. In great shape. Let's go to the end here. Grace hits hits a back fist on Masha and hits a Samoa Joe style muscle buster that won her the match by Elegance bout on the Go Home episode of Impact last night. She goes for the cover, but only gets two. Alicia was helped to the back by Tommy Dreamer and TNA officials. Moments later, Grace hits a big airplane spin and then assisted suplex spot. Spitfire hits the ring and helps finish things up, getting the win. After the match, they throw Ash by Elegance out onto the floor to celebrate in the wing. So I believe Ash got pinned here. Correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't say it in the recap who got pinned, but I think it was Ash that got pinned. So I think that effectively with Jordynne Grace pinning her on Impact and then her getting pinned again, I think this means that she's not getting another title shot anytime soon. So Jordynne Grace can finally move on from her. But where does she go? I don't know. She's wrestled Megan Bayne a couple of times. And Megan Bayne's taking a lot of indie bookings, which tells me she's still a free agent. It's like, what are we doing? She's right there. That's your next star. Go for her. And then Xia Li, I think I saw Billy in the chat, or maybe I can't remember, but somebody mentioned Xia Li. Xia Li got cut from NXT for a reason. It's because she hurt some people. I still think they should probably bring her in because it is a dire scene in the Knockouts division. They got money for JBL, but they ain't got money for women. Gail Kim, step your shit up. Yeah, Io says, open challenge returns. Yeah, this open challenge thing, boy, is that boring. Boy, is it boring. But we'll see. I don't know. I am a spoiler reader, so we'll see who ends up answering the challenge. It might be some bland white chick from NXT, to be honest with you. But ABC defeated AJ Francis and Casey Navarro. So Casey Navarro is the one that replaced Rich Swann. I like Casey Navarro. I did not like him as a replacement here. I was hoping it would have been Josh Bishop. I think Josh Bishop is a more interesting prospect than Casey Navarro. Casey Navarro's been around a long time, and he's been kind of doing dark matches for every company known to man, working his way up. So I'm happy for him that he's got a spot here. But I think that if you're going to, it's hard to upgrade over Rich Swann because he is a former world champion, but I felt like they went the least interesting way possible. I do. But Casey's a good wrestler, and I thought he was good in this match. And I thought this match was really good. I thought it was really good. You say what you want about AJ Francis, but and the guy's performing well in the company. So Guy gets a lot of hate, and I have been one of those guys too. But you know what? I think I'm done hating on the guy. I thought this was a really good match. But Casey Navarro tagged himself in at one point, and AJ thought that and AJ ends up getting his choke slam, I believe, on Chris Bay. Had the match won, but unfortunately he was not the legal man. Casey Navarro was the legal man. They end up getting Francis out of the ring, and then and they pulled Casey Navarro in and beat Casey Navarro, and AJ Francis was not happy. I don't think Casey Navarro is long for this first class deal. So he might have gotten himself fired on day one. So, but yeah, it was a really good match. I do have a criticism of TNA. Specifically, I have a criticism of Hammerstone, and I have a criticism of AJ Francis. I want you guys to go back, and I want you to watch Sid. I want you guys to watch Vader. I want you guys to watch Dr. Death. I want you to watch King Kong Bundy and Brody Hansen. I want you guys to go back and watch some of the monsters of the 80s and 90s and see how they operate and how they worked with little guys. They did not let those little guys pick them up on their backs and carry them around and slam them. At one point during the Ultimate X match, Jason Hotch got Hammerstone on his back and did like a spinning slam deal. And Ace Austin got AJ Francis up on his back, and AJ Francis had to help himself up there twice because it failed the first time. It looked bad. And then he did kind of a slam there too. Don't let those little guys do that to you. Don't let them do it, especially in like mid-card matches. Like, be monsters. Okay. I know Hammerstone likes to work with little guys and like you can sell for little guys. Don't get me wrong. Don't let them pick you up like that. That looks dumb. Don't do it. Be a big monster. Protect yourself. Don't do that stuff anymore. I get it's, modern era, but don't do it. Then we go to the 8-man tag. We got Moose, Myers, Eddie Edwards, and JDC defeated Joe Hendry, Mike Santana, Jeff Hardy, and Matt Hardy. I really like the entrance for Joe Hendry and the Hardys. I thought that was great. Fantastic. I thought this match was really good. And I was surprised by the finish with, I believe it was Eddie Edwards pinned Matt Hardy. And so Joe Hendry loses again. But he's not the one that got pinned. So there you go. And you would think if Moose is getting the title shot at Victory Road that Moose would have gotten the victory, but it was Eddie Edwards. So maybe we're going to do another Eddie Edwards, Brian Myers, and Hardy Boys match. But I thought their last match was pretty good. It actually makes sense because then they took them out for a little bit. So yeah, I think that they'll probably do something like that. So no, Hardy Boys beat them last time. This time Eddie beats them. So maybe they do a third match at Victory Road. That would make sense. Or they will just forget that it ever happened. That could also be the case. So, but I thought the match was really good. And now we go to the main event. Nic Nemeth defeated Josh Alexander 3-2 to retain the TNA Championship in a 60-minute Iron Man match. I thought the match started off good. I thought the first 10 minutes was good. And then they went into a 20-minute lull of rest holds. They had a couple of pins during that time, but it was super boring up to about the 30-minute mark, to where the fans in the crowd were doing random WWE chants from Raw. They had LA Knight chants. They had Yeet chants, Suplex City chants, all kinds of stuff. Like this crowd was having a difficult time entertaining themselves. And it was bizarre. And then all of a sudden, like I think they hit like 25 suplexes in a row, and then the fans got back into the match, and I felt like the last 20 minutes were fantastic. So if you did not watch the match and you just want to see awesome wrestling with a hot crowd, go to the last 20 minutes of this match. I thought that the ending of the match was compelling. I thought the story was great, especially when they got to 2-2, and then they kept kicking out of all kinds of shit. I thought it was fun. exciting. It was dramatic. It was really, really good. I thought the last 20 minutes of this match were spectacular. The first 40 minutes were highly skippable. But I told you guys going in that's probably what was going to happen. Because these Iron Man matches, nobody really cares until like the last 10 minutes. Nobody really cares because you know when the match ends. So that's why it's tough. MJF and Bryan Danielson somehow had like an amazing 60-minute Iron Man match where the crowd was plugged in the entire time. That's a difficult thing to do. Like you go back and watch the Shawn and Brett match from WrestleMania 12. People weren't into that match for like the first half of it too. So that's kind of been the knock. Unless you're doing gimmick after gimmick after gimmick in an Iron Man match, it's really difficult to keep the crowd interested for 60 minutes because they know when the finish is coming. They know not to care until the end. And so the first 40 minutes, they had a hard time keeping the crowd engaged. Yeah. Io brings up another, like they had USA chants and bald chants. Like the crowd was just doing anything they could to keep themselves entertained while they were waiting for this match to get going. It was wild. But that doesn't mean I didn't like the match because I thought that the last 20 minutes were fantastic. And I thought by the end of it, it was a better match than they had on television a couple weeks ago. But look, you're talking about two great pro wrestlers in Josh Alexander and Nic Nemeth. So, good stuff. I don't understand why Nemeth retained. I think Josh should have won, and then the match should be Josh and Hendry at Bound for Glory for the world title. It looks like Josh and Hendry are going to wrestle a Bound for Glory in a mid-card match. They're not. That's very much what it looks like, unless they go and do it at Victory Road, and then Hendry could go, and it could be Hendry and Nemeth at Bound for Glory. I get the feeling that Hendry's not headlining that show. I think that's a real possibility. So all this build up for Hendry to be their guy, their top guy, I think they might be riding the hand of the guy that's not even under contract. I could see it. I could see it. I mean, they could do a babyface match. They could always, of course, they could turn Nemeth heel. They could do a lot of different things and have him go up against Hendry. I think it's a real possibility that Nemeth is just going to defend against Kazarian, and Joe Hendry and Josh Alexander will either be having a match Bound for Glory or they'll just be in that battle royal. I think you guys need to brace yourselves for that possibility. I think it's a real possibility that that's what's going to happen. And it makes no sense. I can't justify it. I can't defend it. I can't defend Josh Alexander being their top babyface for years, turning heel in a match and still losing, and then losing a month later again, and turning heel on Joe Hendry, who doesn't care, is not interested. Now, Alexander could cost him the match at No Mercy. He could, and that would generate some heat. And then maybe they carry that over into Victory Road. I could see that. That could happen. In fact, I actually was predicting that earlier in the week, but I thought that he would do it as the world champion. Could Joe Hendry beat Ethan Page and become the NXT champion, and then Josh Alexander challenge him for that? Maybe. I don't know. But it's hard. Yeah, Io says it here. Perfect. Hard to predict what's next. Yeah. Billy says, Nick also beat Josh with a C4 spike. Yeah, that beat him with his own move. Josh as a heel is like a top heel. He's done. That doesn't mean he's not going to have good matches, and that doesn't mean he's not going to, like, people are still going to like him. But as far as like a top heel, he's done. They killed that in a month. Could they heat him back up again later? Yeah, but it's like, we already know he's a loser. So it's like he's a fucking loser. So he's okay. So I don't think anybody's going to take him seriously as like a threat. You know what I mean? Billy said earlier, he's going to cost Joe Hendry the match and everything's going to be fine. And it's all rainbows and butterflies. And maybe that will be the case. I wouldn't hedge my bets that Josh Alexander gets involved in that match. It's a possibility. I think it's also a real possibility that they don't even go there. And Josh Alexander and Joe Hendry are just in the gauntlet match at the Royal Rumble match at Bound for Glory. That's it. Io says, problem is that this is a stacked title scene. Not on the heel side. Not on the heel side. You got you just turned Macklin babyface for the second time this year. Josh Alexander has lost twice in world title matches, so he's done. You got Kazarian, who's not a top guy. Really good wrestler, not a top guy. You got Moose, so they're going to go back to Moose and Nemeth at Victory Road, which was probably the most boring matchup they can make. They've already done it. And they're going to go right back to it. And I don't think anybody was asking for it. I don't think anybody was like clamoring for that. It would have been nice to give somebody else an opportunity there to shine, but they're just going to go back to the well with Moose. They like you guys got to start like thinking like, what's the most boring thing they could do? Okay, that's what they're going to do. And that's what they did. That's what they did here. That's what they're going to do at Victory Road. And it looks like what's the most boring main event you can think of for Bound for Glory? That's probably going to be it. So think about what's lame and boring and paint by numbers. Like, hey, who could they have promised a title shot to? Or who could they have promised a main event to keep them happy? Okay, that's probably what they're going to do. Not what is the most interesting thing they could do, which would have been Joe Hendry and Josh Alexander. Got to start thinking about that stuff. But all right, guys, I got to get duty calls downstairs. So that's going to do it for me on this episode of Brace for Impact. Thank you for being here. And until next time, mahalo.